Thank you so much for joining us for this special Patreon-backed interview episode of the Dukes of Dice. And I'm happy to be joined by my first board game artist, illustrator on this podcast, Kwanchai Moriya. Kwanchai, how are you?
Doing good, Alex. Thanks for having me. It's exciting.
You're a first, sir.
Yeah, I'm scared. I hope I do a great job and you go on to many and greater and better artists than me.
I think within board gaming that would be tough to find. There's certainly plenty of good ones, but I'd say you would qualify as a great one. So,
thanks.
Hopping in on this, Kwanchai, let's get the background out there, the quick bio out there for folks.
For sure.
What have you studied? How did you get into this industry?
Okay, great question, Alex. Let me see if I can. It's been a long and kind of windy road, but I guess I've always been an artist, having two very wonderful, very Asian parents. I had a little bit of a windy route to get to the art part, but I went to I have a degree in history from UC Davis, and I did that hoping to be a school teacher. I was really into history, but ended up going back to art with a friend who was an artist and blah, blah, blah. Came down to LA and I did a second bachelor's in illustration at Art Center College of Design in Pasadena. And that's sort of where I got started with at least the education side of being an artist.
Was it something that you did a lot growing up? Was it something that was always a part of the childhood, but was never something you thought you'd be able to focus on? Or was it something that you came to a little bit later on?
Yeah, it took me a while to get to a place where I was like, I want to do this. Mostly because being an artist, I mean, the art industry has changed over time, and being an illustrator and the meaning of being an illustrator, of course, has morphed over time. But I mean, yeah, when I was a kid, I was like, what path is there to be an artist? I mean, I would draw little cartoon characters, on the playground and give them to my friends, and I was really cool. But besides that, going up through high school and I just didn't see a path to being an artist that was clear. And I wanted to be that. I wanted a 9-to-5 job. That's funny. And it's so different now,
Right. Yeah.
Being a freelance illustrator. Yeah.
Yeah. You went for the 9-to-5 and you ended up with something completely different. And it is amazing the kind of paths that folks take. What was it that had you say, oh, hey, I could do this. There is a path here that I could make a career out of this. I went to Art Center, threw a bunch of money, got a ton of loans, and went to Art Center and graduated. And then life just smacked me in the face. There was a lot of things going on in general in that time of my life. And one of them was being a brand new Art Center graduate with no idea what to do. And a lot of what they taught in art school is in a way really archaic. And I don't know. I mean, the number of people that I graduated with that are actually freelancing and doing besides the ones that went into the studio, the whole studio route, which is most people, I don't know any other freelancers. Can count them on one hand. Cause it's so different from what we were taught in school, being an illustrator. But anyway, my point is that, I was doing board game redesigns before going to Art Center, before going to art college, right after I had my history degree, because I couldn't get a job there either with the history degree. And then it's those board game redesigns that were my first foot in the door after I graduated art school to start doing board game art. I see. So how did you get into board gaming? Was that something that was a childhood passion or something that you came to a little bit later on as well?
Yeah, I loved board games as a kid, and me and my sisters would go to the library, and they had a board game library, just typical stuff. And you could rent a board game with your library card and just play there at the library. It was awesome. But the real renaissance for me was when I was at UC Davis, and a friend of mine introduced Carcassonne. And that was it. My mind I remember clearly when I played Carcassonne, I was like, oh my God, I can play a board game and it's fun and it's got great pieces and the art is vibrant and interesting. There's a theme that kind of comes through. I just right after that, I remember just going to the local comic book store in Davis, and there was only one comic book store, and asking if they had, I called them. I said, do you have German style board games? Because I didn't know what they were called. And that's what the internet told me.
Yeah.
And he just laughed. He was like, yeah, we have this. And all they had was Carcassonne and its expansions. And I think Ticket to Ride.
And I bought everything they had. Like, I was so excited.
Wow. I think a lot of folks identify with that. For me, it was Settlers of Catan. That mind flip, and Dominion that had you think about games in a different way than you ever would have thought about them before. And then obviously it sounds like the passion grew from there. In terms of redesign work, what are we talking about here?
So I got Carcassonne and I was like, this is awesome. And, I had a lot of time because I had this degree that history just, it wasn't going anywhere unless I had something very applied, it was just one of those. And I had time. I was in Davis. I was trying to figure out a job and I had this time to do stuff. And, I think my first redesign thing was, the board game Survive, which at the time was out of print. And I wanted to play it really bad. And I thought, I'm an artist, or at least, I have some art skill. Let me just draw the whole game from the ground up and make the pieces and print them out and cut them and everything. And that was the first sort of like turning point where I was thinking, I could use art and attach it to like gaming and board gaming, because it's this aesthetic, it's this actual physical thing that you can like hold and touch. And I really liked the way I could apply one of my skills to a hobby. And that was really exciting.
So you get done with school and you hop into the field. What are some of the big early projects that you really sink your teeth into to start building up this reputation that you've earned?
The first thing I ever did was 11 war game counters for Lock and Load Publishing. I got it through another guy. It was through Board Game Geek. A guy named Scott Everts, he's an LA guy. And he was like, hey, I know a guy who needs a thing. And the artist dropped out. Could you just do it? And so I did these tiny, like 3/4 inch illustrations of army men running around, and got paid. And I think it was like 20, but such little money. But I was like ecstatic to do anything related to board games. And that was the first thing, I think. And then my first big actual job that I got was from Flatline Games, doing a game called Twin Tin Bots with a Belgian publisher. And that was the thing that got it off the ground for me.
What was it that you learned in some of those early games that you were surprised to learn about the process and about what it takes in terms of the art side of things?
I didn't know anything. Like, I didn't know even basic things like what format you send things in. I didn't understand like to send files in layers. Like, these are little things that you should know. But as an artist trained at like a more designy, fine arts based art school, I happened to take one class on Adobe Illustrator, and that was like so important for everything that I've been doing up until this point in board games because of the information you learn. But yeah, I was really untrained, so I had to learn a lot just about everything, even relating to a designer or a publisher and doing revisions. I mean, art school is great, but I guess I wouldn't take it back, but wow, like not prepared for the real world in any way in terms of an actual art job. So
as I'm looking at Tiny Tin Bots or Twin Tin Bots, excuse me, and comparing it to some of the other styles that you've developed, to something like Dinosaur Island or Kodama, you've really developed far more of a distinctive voice in all of this. Did it take a period of time for you to not only get the basics down, but also be willing to step up and say, hey, this is a style and a direction I'd like to take this in. I think it'll look really cool and unique. Was it hard to get that voice going?
Yeah, I think so. Twin Tin Bots was like, it was my first job, and the publisher was great, Eric. He's he knew it, like he knew that I wasn't doing anything else. So when you're a new artist, publishers, they're going to pay you less, and they're going to tell you exactly what they want with your input as an artist, of course. I mean, the respect is there, but like you and they and that you are a newbie. So yeah, not a lot of flex on those first early projects because I just didn't know what I was doing too. But I guess Catacombs, the board game Catacombs, when they did the 3rd edition, that was the first game where I was like, I'm going to just do something I'd never done. I was a painter all in art center in art school. So doing like cutesy little drawings and fun little illustrations, a lot of color, was very new to me because I was traditionally like a figure painter. So Catacombs was the first time I just kind of launched and did something totally brand new for me.
What was it that inspired the style of that one?
I don't know. The impetus of Catacombs and that kind of style of artwork where there's just a lot of stuff going on is just to fill fill an illustration, fill the corners of things with like interesting, fun little jokes and funny things that are happening in this whole little world. Kind of like the back, like I think of growing up, like on the back of a cereal box, it has like on the back of a cereal box, it might be like a little board game or something, or an illustration with some little info for the kids and some nutritional information. And then there's just stuff going on in all the little corners. Or sometimes with the cereal box, you could like cut something out and make a little toy. And that's kind of like, that's the fun sort of interesting, engaging illustration I was trying to do with Catacombs and that style of art.
And what are some of the nods, for instance, for folks who may not have had a chance to play that? What are some little things that you would throw in there to kind of get that effect?
Just a lot of little goblins and skeletons. I know it's kind of vague, but just goblins doing stupid stuff. Skeletons running around. It's sort of like tongue in cheek, you know. But I just like having an illustration that's just filled with stuff. Every little corner you look around and you can see all these little things. It's I think part of my success as an illustrator in the board game world comes from the fact that a lot of the board games at the time when I got started were very bland in terms of the cover artwork and what was going on. I mean, I guess purposely, or, you know, there's an aesthetic choice there, but it was like a lot of just like European dudes on a map staring at the viewer. And so like I come in with these like fun, weird things and it's like, wow, that's amazing. But I don't know. I feel like the bar was a little bit not low, but, you know, the bar was different at the time.
Right. And now when we get this influx of amazing artists, yourself included in that mix, it almost seems like a unique artistic style. I wouldn't say par for the course, but it's something that we see more and more and more in games as we go forward.
That's right. Yeah. And when I started seeing like Yellow, when Yellow started publishing art with like kind of like cool, you know, kind of youth centric, but, you know, very vibrant, very well designed art, I was like, wow. I was both wowed and also like just terrified because you know, because that like it's a small world with board game art, and I got in a certain way, you know. I got in, and anytime you see like really, really good art in board games, you're like, crap, like oh no. You know, like you get that feeling like you gotta brush up and keep up with the competition
and keep raising the stakes, so to speak.
That's right. Yeah. All right.
And when I look at something like Catacombs and I compare it to Capital Lux, for instance, which is a game that both John and I loved, and not just love for the gameplay, but love for the art, how much it pops off of that game. What was it that inspired that style in Capital Lux, which is definitely not that zany goblins doing crazy things kind of look?
Yeah, that is actually what I did. That's my art that came first.
I see.
So like in high school, I was an oil painter, and then I went to college for a history degree, and then I came back, and then in art school, that's what I painted. I was a painter. I did like big 40 by 60 inch paintings of like figures, and, you know, using my friends as models or whoever. And that was like what I did well. And the thing that I thought was my quote unquote skill. And then when I started doing board games, for a while, all I was being asked to do were these like Catacomb style cute little drawings and stuff, which is great. I love it. I like doing different things, and that's important to me, I think, as an artist. But so I when I got the chance to do with the Porta games, when I got a chance to do those paintings again, I was really excited because they contacted me, and they're like, we would like to do this. We know you don't normally do this, but could you do that? And I was like, yes, definitely.
Got it. And so we asked for questions on our Board Game Geek Guild number 2008, and one of the folks who wrote in was Steve O'Rourke, one of our big fans of the show, and he's a big fan of the art in this game. But one of the things he's a big fan of is the diversity in the art, the diversity in character art. And I'll read what he wrote. He says that your work shows more diversity in character art than we're used to seeing in the hobby. And he wants to know the choices and challenges that might go into creating gaming art that could broaden the appeal of the hobby to a wider population. Was that in your mind as you were making the art for this game?
Oh yes, definitely. No, I mean,
well,
I would like
I don't
to
know.
say yes. I would like to say yes, and I think part of it is conscious, but part of it is just like you get a project and you try and do the best you damn can, right? And whatever comes out, comes out. But yeah, I mean, I think as an artist, there's different kinds of artists. And I would say technically draftsmanship wise, like actual objective skills, I'm not as good as quite a few of my other friends in terms of just being a really good artist. And I feel like the skill that I like to think is the thing that I offer the best is like being able to do a lot of different things really well. So whereas one person might just be a really good illustrator, maybe I'm also like a decent illustrator, but I can lay out and do composition. And so I approach each project from a more holistic, like I'd like to think of what the actual product looks like on the shelf and pursue like an overall direction, just right out of the box, just like go for something. So all these different styles, I was never afraid to just try something completely different. And I'm really happy that I've gotten a chance to do that. It just seems like a string of happenstance events that you get the right publisher that's like, could you do this? And you're like, yeah, sure, I could try. And when it happens to come out great, it's like, it's just a blessing, you just thank the gods. But I do a lot of different things, and that's important to me as an artist. I think I would be really bored if I only got a chance to do, say, like cartoony little drawings and that's all I did, and I did it well, or if I could only do paintings. And in fact, I was only doing paintings for a while after I graduated, because I had some shows here in some galleries in LA, and that's all I was doing. And it doesn't feel like enough to me as the kind of artist I am. So I'm really grateful that people have come to me with projects saying, could you try this? Could you try that? And it's been so fun. Yeah. Really, really fun.
I think more what he was getting to was he was asking, I think, a lot about the diversity of characters that you show, racial diversity. That when you have female characters depicted in this one, there can be controversies certainly within the board game medium when with depiction of women. So I think he was curious about the diverse depictions, the depictions of a multicultural kind of thing through the art in that game.
Yeah, well, those are my friends that I game with, so I use them as models.
Oh, interesting. Cool.
And Aporta, the publisher, specifically asked for it. In fact, the last 3 or 4 jobs I've done, like Dinosaur Island, for example, with Pandasaurus, a bunch of them, almost always, they're specifically like, we would like diversity as much as possible. In fact, Dinosaur Island was like, let's at least make it half women, half men, and this, racial diversity, as much diversity as possible, so it can be all inclusive. So I've noticed that. I don't know if it's in response to anything. I just think that it's the kind of people that I've been working with are just very like conscious of making games feel like anyone that plays them can be these characters, And so yeah, that was specifically requested. I'm glad too. It's nice.
And I'm curious to go a little bit further into that, because that has been such a long time criticism of depictions of women, wearing scantily clad fantasy clothing. There's always that running joke in video games that when the dude characters get better armor, the armor gets more covering and heavier, and with female characters, a lot of times it'll get skimpier and more revealing. How important is it to you to make sure that the depictions you have within your games are fair, are going to depict things in a way that folks can identify with, and that aren't going to necessarily push some of those older, more kind of sexist depictions that we've seen in the medium?
Yeah. I think those things, those type of illustrations, very like scantily clad women, like, I guess they have their place. I mean, there's fans for people who want that. I don't do that, or I stay away from it, because I don't do that very well, first of all. I mean, I guess I could draw a scantily clad woman, but it doesn't interest me in any way. I do like a theme kind of in a lot of my gallery paintings is like heroines and like, I don't know, it sounds very cliche, but like empowered women, but I like the idea of like a heroine, and I love like the influx of female heroine centric movies in the last like 2 years. I think that's awesome. It's going to be cliche at some point, because every studio is trying to do it now. But I like that a lot, and it's important to me to see. I like seeing like a heroine on the cover of a game. I don't know why. It's just like a personal thing. I like. Anyway, it's definitely something I've thought about, and I try and stay away from, because there's. You can go anywhere else for that, like every industry has scantily clad women on a cover of anything. It's everywhere. So to do something different is like, it's cool. It's the minority in a way. You're doing something like special and different. So I think that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the results speak for themselves. I think things have turned out wonderfully. So Chris K asked on the Guild. He was curious about Dinosaur Island, which is the soon-to-come project that's going to feature very, very colorful and interesting-looking art from you. And he referenced he senses kind of a psychedelic style. Is that something that comes from a specific inspiration? Is it a natural style, or is it just something that you incorporated more for Dinosaur Island? That sort of psychedelicness.
That was Nathan and Molly at Pandasaurus and Peter, the graphic designer. I jumped on that project like right at the end. So they had their whole world, whatever they wanted to do with the game was kind of, they knew what they wanted, which is great because the opposite is being on a project that's like half done, and that's a nightmare for an illustrator. But anyway, I digress. They had it all kind of planned out, and they wanted that. And they asked me like, look, here's some pictures of what we're looking for. Can you do these kinds of colors? And I said I could try. And we just went for it. I mean, I have a lot of color in my like paintings and stuff, I guess, but nothing like at that level. And in fact, when I sent them the first like color sketch, I think I put in the email like, just let me know if this is completely not what you want to do, because I just went like bonkers to the wall with the color. And I think, for whatever reason, they're just like, this is perfect. Like no revisions, and just move forward with the final. So that was that it just kept going. Like they just wanted more and more and more color, more everything, just to really push that art direction. And I'm really glad. Like it came out very, very vibrant, to put it lightly.
So, and it's interesting, you're talking about the interaction with the publisher in that situation, and Steve O'Rourke was also curious about what's the process like of collaborating with a game designer? Do you tend to work more with designers as that process goes along, or more with publishers? How does that tend to go, or does it differ project to project?
Yeah, that's the big question. I think that's like the $1 million question. Like the interaction. I think that's the most valuable question for like, say, like a game author. Like, how does this work? And the answer that I have is like, it's always different. It's interesting. Like I've worked with publishers. So just like, say, like the company owner, which in this industry is like, it's a tiny world still. It's like a boutique, startup kind of world. And so I'll work with both publishers, or sometimes on a project, I'll just work with the designer. And sometimes I'll work with the one guy who is both the designer, publisher, and owner of it. He's just the one guy who's doing it. And all those different ways of working all have their merits. But I definitely enjoy working with the game designer themselves, if possible. It's nice to work with the designer. For sure.
Yeah, because you get a better sense of their vision and the world that they're creating.
Yeah, and board games, it's an interesting industry to be in as an artist, because it's one of its challenges is that because it's a new growing industry, a lot of people that I interact with that have the art direction that I'm doing the illustrations for, they don't really know how to deal with artists. So that's one of the challenges, because a lot of people don't understand how contracts work, or what pay might like. So, you'll get undercut a lot of times on your initial quote, but on the flip side of that is that as an artist, I feel very rewarded working with board game designers and publishers, because I feel like a part of the growth of the industry. And I feel like what I do isn't just necessary to get something to sell units. It's like important to the people that are in it,
Got it. Yeah. And definitely playing a role in how the medium looks visually. One of the things I always like to say is just like movies and TV shows, board games have evolved so much since those kind of classic staple games
it's crazy.
Came out, and an insane amount. And a lot of that is visual style. So I think you're dead on that what the role you're playing is definitely helping advance the industry forward. And I think that's a key role. Chris K was also curious, what game was the most challenging for you to do the art for, and why?
Most challenging? Gosh, I've done quite a bit. I'm trying to remember what was, I'm not saying any names, but the art part isn't the challenging part. The challenging part is the relationship part. And or like managing being an artist. And maybe this is also with game designers and game publishers, I don't know, but like when I look back on what was a challenging time in my life or in a project, it's more about like, what kind of poor relationship did I instill or did the client instill in a project by just not communicating well? You know, it's like it's an email and at the best Skype relationship. So there's all kinds of ways you can misconstrue all kinds of stuff. Yeah, there's one project that was just, it was like a smaller company and, I needed the cash. So I took a job and, it was not a great relationship and, it ended not so great. And, it's like one of the best games that I got rated on. Anyway, it turned out great, but, the relationship, I think is a challenging thing in terms of, doing art for me. Like all the projects are fun to draw. They're all fun to draw and paint and stuff and get them into print. But, yeah, mixing that relationship part and also like your own like physical, and mental, well-being as a person, as an illustrator who basically sits in a room alone for like 99% of your week. And so like managing your own like health and going out and doing stuff and being inspired is definitely, when I look back on projects, those are the challenges I can visualize more than doing the actual art.
Do you enjoy playing games with your art, or are you already always looking and seeing small things you might have been able to do better? And is it hard to kind of play without nitpicking?
Before I got doing like board game art, I still play a lot of games, but I don't play as much games anymore because there just isn't the time. So what I often end up breaking out at the table are games that, one, I already know I like and I want to play, or they're new games that are like highly rated. And I'm not saying that my games that I've done won't possibly be highly rated, but they aren't always games that, you know, maybe Tom Vassel's like, hey, play this game. And that's the game I'll be playing, the one that's getting all the hype, because I don't have a lot of time usually. But yeah, it's cool to see it's embarrassing to play a game with my art in it. I don't know why. I don't know if it's a thing that creatives feel, but like when a game of mine is out on the table and everyone's like, this is cool. You did this too. And this and that. It makes me cringe. I don't want to watch the movie I was in, you know, even if it's great. I mean, I'm not saying the work isn't great, you know, it's just this, I think it's an artist thing, maybe. Not so sure.
BJ from Board Game Gumbo was curious about Kodama, and specifically he was curious about some of the promos. Is it a lot of fun creating promos when you can add on to that world that you've already done in a completed project?
I'm not so sure what the promo is for Kodama, but promos, well, here's the secret. Promos are usually just part of the project. And so I just do the thing and then they make they decide which one the promo is or not. The only exception is with Catacombs. So Catacombs is my longest standing relationship with the publisher. And when I say publisher, I mean just one good guy. His name's Aaron West. And he is great. And when we do a promo, it's because like he'll talk to a friend or he'll be corresponding with one of the fans on online or whatever, and they'll have an idea. And he's the kind of guy who's like, hey, Kwanchai, let's make this idea. You want to do this thing? Like recently he talked about, he's like, I don't know where he gets these ideas from, but he wanted to do an ice beaver character for Canada. I don't know, something. And it's awesome. I love it. And so we like the promos we've done with Catacombs over the years are always because he had some exciting idea he wanted to add in, but almost 99% of everything else is like, this is component number 90 something, and this will be the promo. And I don't have much that I offer in terms of actual game design. I just do the illustration usually and throw it in. But yeah, the only exception is Catacombs, where I've been in the Catacombs family of making these games for so long that Aaron and I have a good relationship, and we work with actual game design together. So
gotcha. So Matthew Ward was curious, are there any games that you like to play that you would just itch to redo the art on, that you just love to redo the art on? It's crying out for it.
Good question. The first thing that comes to mind is Suburbia.
Okay.
Not because actually all the Bezier games I would love to redo, because those games I like almost all Ted's games, but they all, oh God, they look terrible. I mean, they don't look terrible. There's a lot lacking in terms of like punch for a game that I just love to play. Like Suburbia is a game I really like, but the choices of color and whatever, the illustrations aren't bad, but they're just buried underneath like kind of poor graphic design. I think, I don't know, and I'm sorry if I'm offending anybody, but yeah, like his covers and his components, I just wish somebody, it doesn't have to be me, like someone could just redo the art, because I really like the games, but it's just painful to play games with poor art, you know?
Yeah, and is that harder for you to do than most, to play games with really bad art? You know, for instance, the one that we always talk about that has really iffy graphic design or a really iffy look is Castles of Burgundy, but it's an amazing game. It's just sandbagged a little bit by how blah it looks on the table.
Yeah, totally. It doesn't deliver the experience. You know, it doesn't translate the experience. I find it. I don't know if it's just me as an artist. I think it's actually more. I think it's just the everyday person looking at it can feel that like if art and the theming or the atmosphere of a game that's created by the physical image of it isn't translating the experience well, kind of sucks. It's just like a missed opportunity. And it's painful to play a game that I think it has so much more potential that is kind of lost. I think I mentioned this already, but like my career as an artist in board gaming in the industry, I think is predicated on the fact that there are bad art in board games, and that because the bar is like different or lower or whatever, I can like get in there and be like, I want to do this, I want to do that, because there's a lot of blah art, or at least there was. That's really changed a lot. But there was a lot of just like really whatever work for quite a while.
What's your pitch to the publisher who's reluctant to really invest in art in a way that they need to? Your pitch to the difference it can really make for a game?
Yeah, good question. These are great questions.
I used to do it for a living, ask questions.
Yeah, no, I know. These like I don't think about these things, and to have an industry person ask me great questions is just exciting.
Ooh, I'm an industry person. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, when I sit down to play a board game, and talk about things like, yeah, there's a podcast, and they might interview me, and it's exciting. You know, my fiance is like, yeah. Oh, that's nice. You know,
yeah,
oh,
right.
Wow. Oh, wow. You know, or like when we're playing board games, like all the other guys, they're not, I'm the gamer with hundreds of games. So I tell them these things, like, you know, just kind of saying them, just, you know, but I'm really excited about them. And I go to these conventions and all this, but it's great to like speak with someone who just knows these things. It's cool. But anyway, your question was,
your pitch to publishers who don't quite get the importance of board game art, of a nice looking game on the table.
You know, a friend of mine who works at Marvel Studios, Marvel Animation, no one will ever see the work that he does because it's like storyboarding. It ends up being in a cartoon, but the actual hand that does the art his hand is never seen in the end product. And one thing he said about me doing art, I mean, you know, his paycheck is like way bigger, and he's got all kinds of resources. You know, he gets a free lunch, go over the Disney lot, you know. But one thing he said about the art that I'm doing with board games is like from front to back and all the inside, the thing that you see is the art, and it's you. You know, you get a chance to like be an artist on a thing, and it's all over that thing, and that's awesome for any artist. And I think any publisher who, I mean, I don't think this has been a problem in the last few years, because the industry has like really jumped in terms of quality, art and design and everything, and stuff just like not trash, but you know, stuff that hasn't really been worked out well and play tested and given a nice, you know, shiny coat on it, just doesn't float at all. Like we've seen it, right? So I think any publisher who doesn't know the impact of good artwork, I don't really have to say anything to that person, because that person's not going to be around, you know. Like I that's my general take. I'm not a pro. I don't know everything, but I think even a person who just doesn't know that just doesn't belong in, you know, shouldn't be making board games, because it's a dangerous place to throw money if you're not going to invest in good artwork, because that artwork is all over the box. It's that box image is what sells it to all the people in the board game geek who are like looking for what's hot, you know. And so I think people over the last few years, publishers have really, really like tried to step it up and not just have their friend's sister's cousin who they think might do some artwork for their thing, you know?
Gotcha. So Dice Tower Award nominations just came out, and Best Artwork is a category every year. And I wanted to get your take as an artist on which one you think is your favorite of this bunch, and
okay,
why.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
So the 5 nominees are Arkham Horror, the card game.
Yeah.
Inish, Islebound from Ryan Lockett, Kanagawa, and Scythe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Scythe is going to win because Scythe wins everything.
Okay.
And it's kind of sad. It's kind of sad because there are so I remember when I saw the guy who did the Scythe's artwork if you've ever just like clicked around on the internet and you're an art fan, you'll have seen his art like way before Scythe ever came out. Because he was doing those mech Russian sort of like paintings for like a while. And I have stuff in a folder of like cool artwork that's just a bunch of his stuff because it's amazing. When Scythe came out and I saw the cover, I was like, holy, and just I couldn't believe how cool that cover looked. I just, when you see something and you're a creative and it's in your industry and you get mad about it, that's when you know it's really good because it's threatening your livelihood. In terms of how much quality and excellence is put into a thing. And like, not only are the paintings inside amazing, but the overall package and whoever is the graphic designer did like a knockout job in terms of just delivering a really modern looking, really nice product. So Scythe will probably win, but I'd like to say that I think Ryan Lockett's work is the more artistic, cooler product because he's building an entire world like from his brain with art and game design in mind. And I think that is like a big achievement. Like instead of just taking like Scythe is great, but like, Stonemaier Games took a art that was cool and then like either built a game around it or, the art was already existing. So I feel like it was less of an
accomplishment.
An accomplishment, there wasn't like a big bang in terms of creativity. And I mean, I'm not saying there wasn't, but I think Ryan's work is awesome, and he does a lot of really cool stuff. That's very that's pushing the boundaries and of what art is in board games. And so I like his stuff.
Is that something that interests you? Kind of the Ryan Lockett model, where he does the art and designs his own games and sort of creates this world wholesale. Is that something that you're looking at doing going forward?
Yeah, that's always. I mean, just like everyone and their mom, I would love to be a board game designer as well. But I don't. Of course, I have these ideas kind of putting around in my brain. I have a folder of ideas, board game ideas. But I feel like I am a better artist than I am a game designer. But of course, I've seen Ryan stuff over the years, and I remember I don't remember he was doing it before, but I remember feeling like here's a guy who's doing artwork, and it's sort of like it's someone who I'm sort of similar to in terms of the kind of jobs he was doing early on and his progression and his skill as an artist. I was like, oh, I'm kind of like him. And then he just started doing, he did Red Raven and is doing all these games, and I was like, wow, just like, bang, he just like took off. So, but I'd love to. That'd be great. I have designs and I've been asked about them before. I don't think they have any. They're nowhere near where they need to be right now. So they're just fun things to do as I'm falling asleep, just like thinking of game ideas.
Then at least you don't have to. The big pitch you get for a publisher is, hey, art comes with a package.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like that's something I would like to do. It's like a bucket list sort of thing where I come up with a design and I do the art exactly the way I want, and it's just like this ready-made package, and I'm just like, here you go, publisher. You just make money with this. That's it's like some pipe dream somewhere. Yeah. Someday.
It doesn't seem too far out of the realm of possibility, I guess.
No. Honestly, yeah. Being a board game artist and being an artist at all and surviving with a paycheck it still amazes me. I cannot believe that it's happening sometimes. I mean, just being able to go, it's so simple, but like going to Trader Joe's, buying some groceries with the art I made, and looking back 5-6 years ago when I graduated with all the loans and being an artist, I can't believe that I'm here sometimes. And I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to just do fun stuff and get paid for, it's great.
My guess is one or two listeners to this have some inkling or sense of, oh man, that sounds really cool and I'd really like to do this. What would be your biggest piece of advice for someone who's an aspiring board game artist?
I would say don't go to art school.
Okay.
That's the first thing. And if you are in art school, great. That's great, but don't go to art school because it shoots you out the other end with a boot on your face. I mean, I guess loans in general do. Yeah, art school is great, but I feel like going to art school and coming out the other end, you start out like in a hole. Because of loans and because a lot of art schools, the training they offer to be a freelance illustrator. I'm not talking about like in-house in studios and doing like background artist or storyboard revisionist. That stuff is, I think, has application, but being a freelance illustrator, and trying to go to art school, you start out in such a hole in terms of like loans and, a lack of the right kind of training that you need, because a lot of these teachers and the professors at art school, their understanding of being a freelance illustrator, it's old. It's like a decade old. So they're training you to do like editorial illustration for like the New York Times or like magazine covers. And that world is so tiny now that only a few people can succeed. So my first bit of advice is don't go to art school. The second thing, I would say is go to conventions. Because if you want to get in to be a board game artist, then that's where it's happening. And that's where my career made a big jump. I went to Origins for the first time a few years ago, and that was where I met a lot of the people that I'm doing, multiple projects with now. And I would say that's where you should go, because I think one thing that people don't realize is like these conventions. Yeah, sure, it's a retail event, but like so much business is being done on the floor with like designers and authors and illustrators, distribution things. Like I couldn't believe how much business was being done on the floor at like Essen and Gen Con. And if you want to be an artist in this world, that's where you got to be, because people need to see your face and see your work and be like, oh, attach a face to a name. And I think that's really, really important.
In summary, drop out of school and go to conventions.
That's right. Yeah, drop out of school and go to a board game convention, and your career will just take off.
Perfect. And also being good at drawing is probably helpful. I think the best I got is stick figures. So I don't think as many conventions as I'd go to, I don't think I'd find much success in that realm. But
yeah, of course. Yeah, there's definitely skill. And I feel like if you work hard, I mean, the thing with me doing board game art was that it's funny because like I went to art school, but I was doing these board game redesigns. So the board game redesigns I was doing before going to art school those projects were what a publisher saw and gave me my first job from. And that was like before I went to art school. So I think passion is really, really important in any industry, but especially in like freelance, being a freelance artist, it's like crucial. Like that passion has to be there. So that you're creating work even if you're not even employed, like you're just like making work. Because my other like I also do children's book illustration, and that also came from like a project I was just like doing for fun because I had nowhere to apply that creativity to. And I sent out stuff, and I happened to get a gig from like the hundreds I sent out. So I think the passion is really important, especially for board game illustration, but for any kind of freelance illustration in general.
I was curious. We were talking a little bit before the podcast, and you were mentioning that you are a DM for D&D.
Yeah.
And if I'm if I'm in the party on Kwanchai's game,
yeah.
Do I get a lot of visual aids? Do I get a lot of maps? Do I get character illustrations as part of that package, or not so much?
No, nothing.
What?
Well, okay,
nothing.
Yeah, actually, no. The thing about D&D or any whatever role playing game we're playing, the thing I like about it is the what they call it, theater of the mind.
Sure.
I think it is.
Yep.
And so like, yeah, I've played in other people's sessions, other people DMing where it's like miniatures and drawings and maps and stuff. But I really love the challenge of making the entire thing as much a social talking experiment as possible. To me, that's really compelling. And so if I can not use a map, I love it. I love it. I have a great game group that really pushes that and makes it fun. And, we have actually, so that I mentioned earlier, like a friend of mine who works at Marvel Animation, and he is His name's Young, and he's the reason I'm an artist, because after graduating from my bachelor's degree in history, I was like, I don't know what to do. And he was like, try doing art and try applying to an art school. So, and that guy happened to move to LA like years later, a close friend of mine, and he happens to be a regular in our Dungeons and Dragons stuff. And he's been doing like character drawings, and they're just amazing. So I have no reason to try and attempt what he's already doing. But yeah, I like the visual aspect of doing art, and I like dropping that when I go and be a DM and try and create this like world in the mind. I love it.
Interesting. So it's almost your break from having something so concrete on a sheet of paper.
Oh, and actually, that's a good point. That So one thing that going back to your earlier question about success as a board game artist, or any artist, I think a lot of my hobbies have nothing to do with a screen, a monitor. And I think that's both a reaction and a conscious decision as a freelance artist in this day and age to like I love backpacking. I do woodworking in my garage, and all these things have nothing to do with my board game illustration part of my life. And I think those things inform and energize my art side, because they are like actual things I do with my hands, and I go out and I have a life that is as opposite from being, surrounded by 3 screens and doing art like for most of the other time. So it's really important, I think.
Yeah, get that break and also some place to draw inspiration from, I'd imagine too.
Totally, yeah, totally, yeah.
All right, I have one last question for you. You've been very generous with your time, and you are a creative person, Kwanchai, and this is the same question I ask everyone. I'm expecting a creative answer here. I don't know if you've prepped on this, but
no, I don't think I have.
The last question I ask every single guest I have on here is my single favorite question, and it goes as such: Kwanchai, if you could be any flavor of ice cream, what flavor would you be, and why?
Oh my God, that's a hard question.
You're creative. I need a good answer here.
Because I know, because the and why part is it reflects on me as a person and will tell you volumes about the kind of person I am. If
you say vanilla, I'm not buying it.
No, it's definitely not vanilla. Well, my actual favorite flavor ice cream or was it. I don't like ice cream because my Asian genealogy makes any ice cream consumption a very gaseous affair. Or at least I'm finding that out in my 30s, But I really like orange sherbet. Is that technically an ice cream?
We'll for the purposes of this answer, and given the lactose intolerance, I think that's fair enough.
Sure, yeah. Okay, yeah. Orange sherbet. And the reason why I like orange sherbet is, gosh, I don't know what the reason is. It's very sweet. And
uh-oh.
No, I shouldn't even go there. You know what? Orange sherbet. That's such a lame answer. I'm trying to think of a cooler answer.
That's okay. I mean, if that's the answer you're comfortable with, if you think that's your best work, Kwanchai.
Yeah. It's a
bizarre question. It's also, in fairness, it's a terrible question.
No, it's a great question, Alex, and it tells volumes about me as a sweet and engaging artist who any publisher would just love to create a project from the ground up with, a very collaborative, very rewarding experience.
Wait. Orange sherbet's collaborative. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, the funny thing is that I just in the last 2 weeks or so there was I realized I'm addicted to sugar, and there's all these like an emerging thing is like the dangers of sugar consumption, and I laugh because I'm saying orange sherbet, and that's probably the most sugar loaded a choice out of any of the ice creams I could pick, and I'm trying to cut down on sugar, so it's funny that you asked.
If you got a sugar addiction, if you got a sweet tooth, I think folks won't hold that against you.
Right? Yeah. It fuels my art. So
okay, very good. So there you go. Kwanchai, brought to you by Orange Sherbet, a sponsor of all of his art.
Yes. Send me the check, Orange Sherbet. I'll be happy.
Boy. Well, that'll do it for us for this interview. Kwanchai, if folks want to reach out, check out your art, possibly get you on a project, whatever the case may be, what's the best way to reach you?
My website is kwanchaimoriya.com. That's has all my email and stuff there. You can see all my recent projects there, and I'm always happy to talk shop.
Very good. Or possibly make portraits of you and put them into Capital Lux.
That's right. Be famous.
Kwanchai, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Alex. It was a pleasure.